Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the playthrough of When the Night Comes. Just taking care of some business here. So we are in what's called Chapter 3, but technically it's Chapter 4. We have done 3 chapters so far. And in this first chapter, we found out that we are what's called a hunter. And our job is to find creatures such as vampires, demons, lycans, and that are doing bad stuff to typical humans and taking them out somehow. And in Chapter 2, we did some investigating, trying to figure out what the heck is going on, and kept finding dead ends. All the leads that we were given were kind of crap, so it's like, what was the point of giving us these leads? And then the last chapter, which I believe was added in later, there was a lunar festival going on, and we were required to spend the festival with someone. Didn't matter who. We could pick who we spent it with. It could have been August, it could have been Ezra, Piper, Finn, Alcar, Omen. It was up to the player, and I chose to spend the festival with Piper, my fellow hunter. I need to... So now, at the very end of the Lunar Festival, there was a scream that came from the woods, and both myself and Piper had a feeling just before the scream happened that something was going screwy. So, let's go ahead and load up the game and continue with what's called Chapter 3. Warning, any dialogue options labeled fight in this chapter will contain scenes of violence and will have descriptions of blood and violence. I didn't read that quick enough. So no matter who you spend the Lunar Festival with, you end up working with Piper. And hello to all my viewers, all 2 of you. I don't mind. The cold winter wind whips against my skin as I run as fast as I can, sinking deeper into the ominous woodland that surrounds Lunaris. Yeah, that's not ominous at all. I'm hot on Piper's heels, and she's determined, focused, as am I. Someone or something is in danger, therefore we are doing business now. We're in business mode, work mode. There's nothing I like to hunt. The way my instincts drive every feeling, the way my every thought is hyper-focused, fixated on winning and only winning. I can think of nothing else but finding the source of the distress, a terrible sense of dread swirling deep in my gut. Oh no. The woods are teeming with every hunter and enforcer Lunaris has to offer, each and every one of us silently hoping that this isn't what we think it is. And for the people who are coming in late, and my previous playthroughs are available on my channel. The videos are not locked behind a subscription. What's happened is there has been a series of murders around Lunaris, and the previous victims were all hunters like your characters, the same rank, which means they were clearly skilled. They were not bad, but somehow they were killed. Their bodies burned beyond recognition, and the last one, we will find out more about him in this chapter. But in the meantime, the dread feeling is that this upcoming spring is another hunter that's been killed. We don't know for sure. That this isn't the fifth victim that we've all been expecting. Another of our comrades targeted and slain so brutally and without an apparent motive. Yeah, that's the biggest question is, what is going on? Why are these people even being killed? I mean, aside from the fact that the murderer just wants to kill people, which is a valid reason. Killed simply for doing their job, protecting humankind. That's why hunters came into being, was to protect humankind from creatures like vampires, demons, werewolves, and so on. My feet pound the fresh, crisp grass, tall trees with gnarled branches that curl inward like talons, almost naked from winter's grass looping high above us. I spot eyes glowing in the darkness, but quickly realize they carve messily into the rickety tree trunks. They glow ominously, and as another gust of wind blows, I swear I see them blink. That's not creepy at all. I make a mental note to remind myself to return to investigate, though I'm sure they're nothing new. It doesn't seem like it. Oh, and I never noticed before, but you can see them. You see these eyes carved into the tree trunks. Not in a town like this. Piper's kiss just stopped, her fingers diligently hovering just above the handle of each of her daggers that sit safely in the holster at her back. For the record, my character is 5 foot even, and tiny little thing, and she's a hunter. And I did that deliberately because that would be the last thing you'd expect of a hunter, that they'd be this dainty little woman. But every bit the warrior that Piper is, and her preferred weapons are a dagger and sword. The sword just sort of make up for the lack of height, lack of reach. And more beautiful character art. Oh, so pretty. Did you hear that? Quiet but obvious whisper echoes amongst the trees, a pained groan for something unquestionably inhuman. Fuck. A creature. I did. Her fingers twitched, so do mine. Eyes narrowed, every sense razor sharp and zoned in on that singular point. It feels young, inexperienced. It's beneath our skill level, beneath us. I.e., we don't really need to fight it. We can leave it for someone else. She says it with such a confidence that her guard is so firmly up. Yeah, just because it's beneath our skill level doesn't mean we're going to relax. The duo of wide-eyed hunter sergeants that had been ordered to tail us arrive at our side, their cheeks rosy. Hunter sergeants are also hunters, but they're lower ranked than both myself and Piper. Major? Piper opens her mouth to respond, but she pauses, looking to me. You're the highest rank here, General Locke. Do we move on and let these two handle it, or do you fancy working out some tension? Piper has said before that she hasn't been on a proper hunt in a week, so she's itching for a fight. To be honest, my character probably is itching for one as well. So this is where we get the choice of whether to actually fight this creature or not. I didn't find the descriptions that bad. the descriptions of the fighting and the blood and all that, but I'm sure there are others who would find it so. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the fight option. If you don't like descriptions of blood and stuff, mute it for a bit. If you don't mind descriptions of blood, please continue to listen. I could always do with working out a little tension, especially since I can't work it out the way I prefer. That's what I was hoping you'd say. I haven't had a good fight in what feels like forever. I turned to address the sergeants. Continue heading for the rendezvous point. If you encounter General Willenheim, tell them we're on our way. They nod a little too eagerly and run onward. The hairs on the back of my neck rise the second they're out of sight, my body gearing up for a fight, adrenaline coursing generously through my veins. I close my eyes and clear my mind. I can hear the steady, assured thrum of Piper's heartbeat, the quiet rustle of the grass, the leaves rustling in the trees. God damn, this sounds amazing. Then I feel it. A vampire, a youngling. Her aura is frantic and skittish, as though I'd just awoken. Great! She's hungry and scared. No surprise if she's just awoken. She's trying to hide. I smile. We're out quite far. I always used to find younglings in this area. So my question is, what's creating these younglings? Who is doing that? She can likely sense that there's a clan here. She's either seeking guidance or an easy meal. It's too dangerous to let her live. She's quite clearly unstable. Then we'll have to kill her. Notice the change in expression? I love that there is these changes in expression. The youngling finally emerges from the tree line, her vivid crimson irises surrounded by a blackened sclera. Her eyes flicker wildly as she lumbers towards us, unfocused and impossibly unsteady on her feet. This should be easy. She's clearly deprived of blood, dark running veins surrounding her wild eyes and creeping down her pale cheeks. I see that she wears no shoes, her feet black with mud, and her clothing is torn and saturated with blood, most of it likely her own. Yeah, sounds like she was turned very violently. Her death was obviously not a merciful one. She's quite clearly been left to navigate her rebirth by herself, and just never ends well. Her lips curl menacingly to reveal sharp fangs that she's still getting used to, and she lunges at us without hesitation. Riley sees this as a fresh meal. Now we got a choice of what to do. Do we dodge her attack? Do we block it? Or do we counterattack? No. Since Robin is tiny and petite, she has the tendency to go on the offensive, so we're going to counterattack. Before she even gets the chance, I propel myself forward, lunging and knocking her out. I watch her stagger, her newly broken fangs bared as she scrambles on shaky legs to steady herself. So there's a reason that she's really beneath myself and Piper, who was a general but was demoted to major. I circle her, a hunter and its prey, because that's exactly what I am. She doesn't stand a fucking chance. Piper shifts somewhere behind me, and considering we've never hunted together before, our instincts are perfectly aligned. That's a good sign. She moves, I move. It moves, we attack. She tries to attack again, shrieking as she attempts to fling herself forward and attach herself to my neck. Not today, sweetheart. I grab her arms, twisting her and holding her tightly as Piper sinks one of her daggers into her shoulder. See? The youngling screeches a deafening sound that leaves my eardrums crackling. She slashes as the silver burns her flesh, the smell of it turning my stomach. Yeah, it would turn my stomach too. Burning flesh is not a good smell. She tries to claw at the blade, leaving her fingers bloodied even more so than they already were. That's lovely. I tackle her to the floor force. Tickle? Oh my gosh. Pushing her face into the dirt, my knee firmly lodged against her spine. The youngling screams as Piper forcefully grabs her hair, dinking her head back. She stares her down, tactfully avoiding the snapping of her jaw, and she shakes her head. She's gone. Put her out of her misery. We work in tandem to remove her head clean from her body. It's the only way, however violent it may be. It's not too bad. I mean, they're not describing the actual decapitation, just describing that it's happening. I feel warts spray against my skin, wet, the unmistakable smell of copper. Yum. The visceral sound of tearing flesh and breaking bones fills the clearing. Then she turns into nothingness beneath us, an unrecognizable pile of blood and viscera, and yet another human life is just stolen and twisted into something evil. Pardon me. That was fun. Trust Piper to find something like that fun. So the descriptions of blood and violence are fun, but now Piper has blood splashed on her. I brush the dirt from my knees and take a deep breath, watching Piper clean off her bloody daggers on the grass. We should really get going. She tries to face me, and I spot that her face is covered in a dark splattering of crimson. So we get another third option, and of course I'm going to take it. I take a tentative step forward, and her eyes quickly flick to my face, curiosity shining in the bright blue, her adrenaline still spiked. You have a little something... I do? I nod, stepping closer again, unable to stifle the smile that threatens to curl at my lips as she stares me down. Right here. I touch the tip of her nose and each of her cheeks. May I? She arches a brow at me, her eyes are sparkling wickedly. You may. She tilts her head and waits expectantly, a hand resting up on her cocked hip. I reach out and brush my thumb over the apple of her full, freckled cheeks, wiping away the still wet blood. She hugs a quiet laugh I could tell she's attempting to swallow. She grabs my wrist and reels me in. I like that. Come on, put your back into it. I laugh heartily as Piper uses the sleeve of my coat to roughly wipe her face clean, leaving her cheeks a delightful rosy red. And the blood is gone. How do I look? I inspect the damage to my sleeve with a sigh as I register the bloody stains. Certainly not the worst mess I've been in. Positively ravishing, as always. I clear my throat, enchanted by the way her eyes crinkle at the corners when she laughs. I love her smile. I mean it, Piper, even covered in blood. I know you mean it. A pause, and I think back to the beach, the fireworks. I think of the way that this connection between us only seems to grow stronger each time I'm in her presence. Piper, about the festival. She grabs my forearm, squeezing gently. I had an amazing time with you, Robin. The best. But another time, we should go. Although I'm disappointed by the gentle deflection, I understand. I'd almost forgotten where we are, what we were supposed to be doing. To focus on Piper. I don't blame her. Another time. Her hand slides down my arm, fingers ghosting over my own as she pulls away, and it's back to business. August will be having an absolute shit fit. Piper tilts her head to the side, a loud crack as her bones click back into the rightful place. Oh, I have a sister who hates the sound of cracking bones. Let's dash. It's easy to tell what we're dealing with as we draw nearer to the scene. Dozens of hunters and enforcers of varying ranks saturate the small clearing, the majority of them still dressed in their festival attire, much like Pepper and I. We spot a retrieval team emerging from the tree line, their faces pale and drawn. It's then that I know they didn't make it. You're here. Look at August outfit, it's so amazing. I swear, everybody in this game is allergic to buttons. Like, all of the shirts are cut to show off the chest. Not that I mind, but it's just like, does anyone dress modestly here? We are. We ran into some trouble on the way, but we took care of it. I gathered that's why you were so late. It's fine. Obviously, such things cannot be prevented. Well, that was understanding of you. It's not good news, as I'm sure you can tell. My heart sinks. Look at Piper, her face stings. She knows too. I knew, but hearing it out loud is still unpleasant. Do we have an identity? They shake their head, brushing the front of their fur coat that I'm sure they're less than happy about wearing in such a situation. We can't identify their voice catches. There is no body again, nothing but, well, I don't need to repeat such monstrous details. You've read the reports from the previous murders. It's much of the same ghastliness. Piper scarfs, her shoulders tensing, and I swear I could see tears in her eyes. She's hurting, angry. So angry that I can feel it. Blue splash prickles across my skin thanks to our close proximity. My own emotions waver with the sheer force of it. Damn. But then Piper probably knows the hunter. My character, no. This is fucking ridiculous. This cannot keep happening, August. I flinch, feeling the surge of energy as August reacts. The smell of ozone thick in the air. A flash in the darkness and violet sparks crackle about their clenched fists, their eyes alight. Magic again. That's another thing if you're coming to this new. There is such a thing as witches, and August, our non-binary character here, is one of them. There is another one, but you'll meet him later. Thank you, Piper, for your input. I didn't know this was upsetting. I assumed everyone was enjoying this. Ouch. It does a nice turn to look at them, and they quickly calm themselves. They look beyond exhausted, the skin beneath their eyes purple and drawn. Piper opens her mouth to retaliate, but wisely decides against it. This actually might be the first time I've seen her look guilty. August averts their gaze, as if they can't bear to look at her. They're upset, too. I suggest you keep your thoughts to yourself in such a situation, unless you have any useful insight. Ooh, ouchie. It's not a question. Yes, sorry, General. Piper. I thought as much. We're all hurting, Piper, not just you. Oh, that's almost gentle. August sighs deeply, spared us both a woeful glance before they addressed the gathered forces. Hunters! Any majors present will patrol the immediate area. Generals will head farther afield and begin an extensive perimeter search. I want no stone unturned here. Any juniors need to get the hell out of here. You're not equipped to even think about dealing with whatever this thing is, and I won't be responsible for your demise. Bad enough that they have 5 hunters gone now. Anyone else present is to report back to headquarters immediately. You'll need people on the ground in town to reassure the townsfolk. I don't want this causing widespread panic. It's damage control crime. Great. There's a quiet, subdued mumble of yes, General, and they all dutifully begin to obey August's orders, disappearing in various directions. Would you like me to join the perimeter search? No, I'd like you to go home. Leave this to the others. We need you ready for anything that may transpire overnight. I guess since I'm in charge of figuring out what the fuck is going on. Of course. Piper fidgets, uneasy. But you're a major, aren't you? If you were listening, you'll know what I asked of you. Ooh. The tension between them is yet again immensely unpleasant. Of course, General. She should have expected such a response, and I wonder if she'll ever learn. Or maybe she's hoping to rile them. I can no longer tell. Hard telling with Piper, especially since she and August have clearly worked together a lot. The tension between them is clearly ruthless. Piper throws me a quick, pitiful glance before she glares at August and turns to join her comrades. Later, August massages the temple and healing sharply, swaying where they stand. I notice that their hands are shaking, and I unconsciously take a step towards them, fearful that they may pass out. They hold out their hand, a signal for me to stop. I'm fine, really. Oh my gosh, I didn't notice this. They're blushing! It's the blush. Very faint, but it's there. General, I appreciate your concern, Hunter. Really, anything that ails me is my fault and mine alone. Now, please head back. I meant it when I said I need you rested. You will be the first to hear if anything significant happens. I'll send a messenger to retrieve you when the victim has been identified. Of course. Good night. Stay safe. If you think I'm staying out here in this another second, you're sorely mistaken. I have a mountain of paperwork the size of the ibex on my desk. Okay, so they're going to do paperwork. Alrighty. Farewell, Robin. We take a final look at the scene where the enforcer witches have cast their mace right over a bloodied patch of grass, leaving them to their work no matter how much I want to investigate. After that outburst, it's best not to question my enforcer's request. I bow my head before I turn, eager to get out of here. As I head back to the woodlands, I notice how eerily silent it is. A strange sense of calm washes over me. Then A whisper. Harry. I stopped dead in my tracks, my hand hovering over my weapon. I see nothing, feel nothing, no matter how hard I concentrate. Then I realize that voice, the familiar yet subdued ache that begins to creep into my temple. James, you deserve to know. The pain ebbs and flows, my breathing growing unsteady, almost as if something weighs heavy upon my chest. The fleeting, comforting calm that had just settled over me is snatched away as his voice continues to echo in my mind. No, what? I'm sorry. A sharp, burning pain shoots up along my spine, and I fall to the ground, the snow-covered grass wet beneath my fingertips. His words were cut off, and after a moment, I'm yet again surrounded by a blissful silence. Fucking ghosts. Even in this verse, ghosts are assholes. I drag myself to my feet, and now I only have one thing on my mind. One thing that I must do. Visit the Lieutenant General and find out what the hell is happening to me. After no luck finding him in his own office, I head to the only other place I assume he may be at this hour. The door to Artist's office is thankfully ajar, so I peek around the frame, finding Harry standing alone. He has a report in hand, his coat hung on the back of Artist's chair. He looks exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. However, when he notices me, he still offers me a bright, earnest smile. Robin, I can't tell you how relieved I am to see you safe. My throat feels tight, my palms sweaty, and I can't quite place why. James is doing a good job of making it difficult for me to stop thinking about him. The pain I felt from his final moment was raw, like an exposed nerve. For some reason, when I think of it now, I now think of Harry. But why Harry? I need to know why he wanted me to come here, why everything seems to point back to the man standing before me. I need to tell you something, but I need you to promise that you won't think I've lost my mind when I tell you. Harry narrows his gaze, nodding once. Go on. I visited the graveyard a few days ago while I was getting my bearings. He stays silent, but I can't help but notice the way his knuckles bleed white as he tightens his fist. I felt an overwhelming sense of grief there, pain, a yearning for a lost love, a sense of failure and crippling sorrow. I thought nothing of it at the time. It's not unheard of for those that have been murdered to feel scared or sentimental in their final moments, in my experience. But Harry drops his gaze, his bright eyes sad, edged with tears. My words threaten to catch in my throat, but I relent. The other night I visited again, almost like something was pulling me there. I heard more, not just a memory this time. He spoke to me. He looks like he's seen a ghost, staring at me wide-eyed. He quickly swipes at his cheek. Oh, James! I get the horrible feeling that he's been waiting for this. I need to know. He nods, understanding, then he takes a deep, shuddering breath. James was assigned as my very first hunter the moment we both graduated at 18. He had shown remarkable promise in school, basically skipping all the junior nonsense that they force upon you. I, too, had impressed, so we were placed together in the hopes that we'd become unstoppable. We were inseparable in the field together for decades, until I took this post as Lieutenant General. A pause, another deep breath, one that shakes. But as well as being my subordinate, he was also my partner, my husband, and the ring. My heart sinks, bile rising in my throat. I've read countless reports about him and the infamous Hunter Lane over the years, but I never knew his first name or anything about him other than his incomparable work. Official records tend to omit personal details for the safety of the hunter or enforcer in question, unless they become a leader like Harry. They were inimitable, the best of the best. Together they killed some of the most nefarious creatures in our history, and without question, every young trainee aspires to be just like Hunter Lane. To think that he's just gone, and what Harry must be going through. I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were married to Hunter Lane. For nearly 10 years, yes. but we'd known each other forever. I had failed the hunter initiation quite dramatically, and he was taken away to his father's home country to train to become what I'd always dreamed of becoming. Life had other plans for me, but we still found each other in the end. He used to joke that we were destined, the romantic fool. Aww. I really don't think it's sunk in that he's gone just yet. I keep thinking he's going to walk through my door, covered head to toe in blood and grime, with a stupid, wonderful grin on his face. He laughs himself, a quiet house. I notice how his eyes sparkle when he talks about him. They say that people deal with grief differently, but I haven't quite figured mine out just yet. I apologize for not telling you, but it was important to me that I could trust you first. My judgment has been impaired, I'll admit it. So this turn of events isn't exactly what I expected. I don't think anyone was expecting a ghost to show up. All I can think about now is justice, about the others that died before him and what we could have done to stop it. What I could have done to stop it. What did he tell you when he spoke to you? His words waver, and he mindlessly fiddles with his wedding band, eagerly awaiting my response. I think about what Ezra said, about being careful who I share this with. Did that warning apply to the Lieutenant General of all of Espria? So this is a big question. Do we tell him the truth? Do we lie to him? I'm going to go ahead and tell him the truth, because this is his husband we're talking about here. He told me to leave, that he failed, and that there's no hope. He swallows thickly, his expression unchanging. I got the impression he wanted to say more, but I don't know how he managed to communicate with me in the first place. I think he can only say so much before he fades away. It feels like a great struggle for him to reach out. I cannot explain it, because this is eyes tight, shaking his head as if he can't bear it to hear any more. I wouldn't either. This is his husband. I will need you to speak to Augustus about this. They know more about psionic magic than anyone here. I'm sure they'll be able to help you figure this out. I do not trust anyone else. Then, a hopeful look. Did he truly not say anything else? He didn't, no. But the first night that I felt him, I could tell how much he loved you, Harry. You were all he could think about in his final moments. So, he laughed quietly. Yes, well, he's all I can think about, too. The curse now, I suppose. Silence hangs heavy between us, and I don't quite know what to say next. He looks devastated, understandably. He must have so much on his mind already with the latest murder, and now this. The way he came alive when he spoke about James didn't go unnoticed, and I wonder if maybe talking about him would lift his mood. There's a lot of hunters out there that can only aspire to be half as brilliant as Hunter Lane. I'd love to hear what he was like, if you don't mind. Sure enough, his somber expression disappears, and he seems to brighten up a little. He was a cocky son of a bitch, but it worked well for him in the field. He was never careless, though. I often found myself watching him instead of paying attention to whatever was attacking us. Luckily, he could fight well enough to protect us both, or I'm sure we would have been in trouble. That's kind of cute. And honestly, same. A lot of enforcers choose to stay cooped up in a stuffy office, away from all that danger. Working with James made me not want to miss a thing. He digs into his coat pocket, retrieving his wallet and pulling out a small, weathered photo. He pauses, staring me down as if he has reservations, but then he hands it over. It's of him and James. They look young, beyond happy, and impossibly in love. Oh, look at them, the smiles. We were unbearable to be around, I'm sure. I studied the genuine smiles, the way their fingers are laced together. I may not know James aside from the voice in my head, but I feel a strange connection to him, as if I too have known him forever. Thank you for showing me. He takes the photo back into its place right beside a neatly folded up letter. Well, apparently he appears to have taken a liking to you. It's only fair for you to put a face to the name, I suppose. He stares down at his hand, once again twisting his wedding band. It's become a fidget toy. His expression is neutral when he meets my gaze, but in a split second his disposition shifts to the stiff formality I'm so used to when dealing with figures of authority. Gathered that our conversation about his dearly departed is over. Understandable. What happened tonight could have been prevented. It's unacceptable that we were so aware of the looming threat, and yet we let our guard down and lost another life. Who insisted on having this lunar festival again? This cannot happen again. I nod, agreeing wholeheartedly, but I cannot shake the feeling that, yes, this could have been prevented if it weren't for the festival. Is that what I just said? The festival he was so adamant went ahead despite others' clear apprehension, including August. I think better of pressing the matter, for Harry suddenly doesn't seem like a man willing to admit fault. Oh boy, it's not good when people aren't willing to admit that they've made a mistake. Did you speak to the twins as I requested? I did. As I'm sure you expected, I didn't get much out of them. A quiet hum, which I think is an indifferent agreement, and Harry sighs heavily. They are rather adept at replying and sheer avoidance. I am interested in speaking to the brother alone, though. There was something off about him, like he just didn't want to be there. I also came across a letter outside the building, one that was addressed to him. The language looked demonic. Harry nods, indifferent, and I wonder if he even heard me. He clears his throat and puts his eyes to the side as though he has no interest in humouring me any longer. There's nothing more you can do here until we've identified the victim. Get some rest. It's late. I just got a whole day's worth of rest. Hello. You're dismissed, Hinterlock. Though I'm used to being addressed in such a manner, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't perplexed by the shift in his demeanor. I chalk it down to grief, just like he said, but I can't help but feel like maybe I've disappointed him somehow. I turn and I quietly leave. Snow is still falling as I step outside, and though the hour is late, there's certainly no peaceful quiet in Lunaris tonight. The streets outside of headquarters are bustling with hundreds and firsts and everything in between. I keep my head down as I make my way towards the wolf. I fall into a trance as I replay my conversation with Harry over and over, trying to pinpoint the exact moment that made him change his attitude so drastically. I'm snapped back to reality when I bump into something cold and hard, finding a pair of familiar golden eyes staring back at me when I look up. Ooh, hi, Finn. Robin, distracted, are we? I step back, brushing down the front of my coat. I can see that his lips are on the cusp of curling to the side and a vaguely amused smirk. You could say that. It's been a long night. He offers me a sympathetic look, shoving his hands firmly into his coat pockets as a few roving forces pass by. They make a point to glare at him, and by proxy at me for being near him. Oh, that's lovely. Finn dutifully avoids their gazes like a man who has had centuries to perfect feigning indifference to the way people like me treat him at his time. I can imagine. I'm glad to see you safe, Robin. We were all worried for you when we heard. Thank you, Finn. He turns to check the street is now clear, turning back to me with a serious look. I have my clan patrolling the woods. I'll ensure they're out until dawn, searching if necessary. Anything we can do to help find whatever or whoever is doing it. I'm grateful for the assistance, and I certainly can't say I've ever had a clan of vampires as allies before. I must admit that their help would be of great value to me, to us. That's very kind. After an indecipherable pause, Finn's expression drifts somewhere far away. You know, I was out there just now. I picked up a scent, something familiar. Familiar how? He steps closer, and there's a certain air of caution in the way he addresses me, as if he's unsure that we're truly alone. I didn't get to hang around. There were too many enforcers, but the blood on that stone we found in the graveyard at the scene of a pause, apprehension clouding the way he looked at me. Next words are glum, as dead as his demeanor. A puncher laying step. He's testing waters, if the way he holds my stare is anything to go by, waiting to see just how clued in I am. I know about him, Finn. I spoke to Harry just now. He might be a vampire, but the look that crosses his face momentarily isn't exactly subtle. He casts his eyes away from me, the frown that settled at his brow softening around the edges. He licks one of his fangs, thinking with a forlornness that suits him a little too well. I see. And how did that go? I shrugged, because I can't really offer him anything else. I feel defeated. Not great. He's in mourning, and I don't think he's in the right mind to be making decisions. Yeah, let him grieve, away from work. Finn purses his lips, contemplating my statement. That's a full way to speak of your superior. Excuse me, Lieutenant General, but I don't doubt your instincts. Then a pause. I've lost loved ones, and it's never easy. Mine needs time to heal after such trauma, and all Harry is doing is delaying his grief. Eventually, he throws me a half-hearted smile, but I sense something pitiful rather than friendly. I suspect my frustration with my current predicament is glaringly obvious without him having to read my thoughts. Yeah. I'm sorry you've been kept so in the dark. I sense that you're frustrated, and I don't blame you. As much as I may not agree with certain information being withheld, it's truly for your safety. It's funny, because everyone keeps saying such things, but it certainly doesn't feel like anything other than sheer avoidance. He removes a hand from his pocket, running long fingers through his hair with a knowing exhale. Yes, well, I cannot excuse anyone else's behavior, but I can apologize for my own. Oh, you mean the way you slammed me against the wall? Come by the catacombs when you get the chance. I have some things we can discuss that may help. So spending some time underground in a tomb sounds less than appealing. Finn doesn't look like the kind of man who lives in squalor. Plus, any information is valued, and Finn has lived here long enough to know the ins and outs of this strange little town. Thank you. I'll take you up on that as soon as I can. He tips his head, encouraging me to follow him towards the wolf, I assume. Come on, I'll walk you home. I am eager to get inside, and with a few strides I catch up to him, following in step. I don't require an escort, you know. Everyone seems so set on ensuring that I'm safe, but you always seem to be forgetting that I was brought here to save the day. Supposedly. He purses his lips in an obvious attempt to stop himself from laughing, and I watch the bob of his throat as he swallows the noise. Yeah. I am well aware that you require no assistance, but just think about the hunters that were killed. Fair point. They were of your caliber, your rank, the best of the best, as the Darwin enforcers like to say. Listen, the thought of you ending up like them is not a pleasant one, Robin. We may not have known you for very long, but we don't want to see you get hurt. Oh, they care about me. He has a point. Oh, I just saw your message. I'm like, yes, Finn! Very well, but no coddling. Understand? Yes, General. He laughs again when he catches sight of the dramatic roll of my eyes, sidestepping with startling grace to avoid the elbow that I launched towards his ribcage. We walk quietly through the streets, the cobblestones glistening with frost. The moon is full and hangs low in the sky, as it always seems to here in Lunaris, and Finn exhales sharply to break the silence. I glance at him, too tired to ask him any of the hundreds of questions that run through my mind. I think he knows somehow, or he chooses to have something on the tip of his tongue. Yeah, I would have lots and lots of questions for him because I'm a history nerd, so I want to ask him all the questions about all the history that he's witnessed. But that's me being a history nerd. We stop outside the wolf, the lantern that hangs above the door is dark thanks to the late hour. I glance up at the now familiar sign, a scrappy-looking white wolf howling at a full moon, and I laugh. Hey, Umbra, it's Garot. He leans against a mismatched brick and stares at me quite intently, his eyes unnervingly bright in the growing darkness. What's funny? You're all masters at being painfully cryptic, and yet I feel at home. But I shouldn't trust a single bloody one of you, should I? He turns, checking her alone again before he leans a little closer, his voice low. That's for you to decide. Now, tell me, Hunter, what does that tricky little gun of yours tell you about all of this? About us? What do you feel? And now we get three choices. Do I flirt or no? I'm really to Tim about this because at this point, after I picked someone for the festival, I stopped flirting with everyone else. So I kind of want to keep flirting until I make my final pick. Let's keep flirting. I find myself getting lost in molten gold, watching him watch me, a witty response turning to ash upon my tongue. I try to search his face for a clue about what he seeks, but I come up short. I feel that I should be doing anything other than talking to strange vampires in the snow at this early hour. And yet, here you are. I sighed, joining him leaning against the wall, my breath turning to mist against the cold air. Here I am. I wish I knew what it was about him that draws me in, besides the obvious. By all accounts, I should be overly cautious around such a creature. This one makes me feel more at ease than I thought possible. And I need that tonight more than ever. I want to get to know him, to understand why my heart pounds so feverishly whenever he's near. I should head inside. My words sound dull, and I know I don't mean them. I'm looking for a reason to stay right here, anchored in this spot. You sound positively enthused. Right? I shrugged, sparing the cold old door of the tavern at glance. The sheets are scratchy. I'm just psyching myself up. That's fair. After a very brief pause, he quickly steals his gaze. He reaches out and runs a cool iron finger along the curve of my cheekbone, the etching gliding out to the darkness. Ooh. You're quite lovely, you know. Aww. I cannot resist the impulse to tip my head in blatant invitation, the way wolves show submission, baring the calm of my throat to a man that could rip it out in a blink of an eye. Ooh. His cool digit snaps from a place where my pulse drums furiously, and I no longer care that he can hear, that he knows what he's doing to me. He smells strangely like a dying summer, though I suspect his memories of sunshine are long dead. Sweet dreams, fair hunter, I daren't keep you from your rest much longer. My traitorous body shivers under his touch, and I mourn the loss of it when he finally pulls away. He quickly stuffs his hand back into his coat pockets as if the temptation would be too much if he didn't. I take a deep breath and try to gather my wits. I can't seem to find it in me to mind. He smiles at that, and I sense reluctance as he pushes away from the wall, ready to depart. At last you have a town to save, plus the night is still young for a creature like myself. Good point. I sigh, staying closer than is probably necessary, craving contact of any kind as I watch his grin grow wider still. Right. I really should head inside though, I suppose. A pleasure, as always. And remember, we've got your back. Should we find anything of interest overnight, I'll come running. Daylight permitting, of course. Good night, Robin. I return a smile, pushing the heavy door to the wolf open and praying it doesn't creak and wake the other residents. Good night, Finn. I watch him go before I close the door, only the light of the moon guiding the way as he disappears into the darkness. But that's not a problem for a vampire, right? Umbra, who did you take to the festival? Do you remember? I finally settle upon a hard mattress, the cheap sheets harsh against my skin as I attempt to get comfortable. Light from the low-hanging moon bleeds into my room, bright enough to keep me awake as it cuts through my sorry excuse for curtains. That's lovely. I scrub myself clean of any traces of grime from the hunt, and I can't help but feel irritated from the sheer lack of progress I've made so far. Yeah, I would be too. I come to the conclusion that there are too many secret keepers in this town, and I refuse to feel defeated or to let it continue. I will find out what these secrets are, goddammit! Overwhelmed by the day's events, I find myself falling into a swift and dreamless sleep. ... Reality settles over me when I awake, a thick smog that almost suffocates me as I reluctantly drag myself from the almost comfort of my bed. I haven't had anywhere near enough rest, but I must relent. I muster the energy to dress and head downstairs to face whatever obstacles are hastily and inevitably shoved in my way. It's just standard operating procedure now. No sooner had my eyes taken in the bleary sight of the empty tavern than a hideous scraping of wood against stone assaults my ears. Yes! In a corner of the room where he had until then sat in shadows, Alcar stumbles to his feet, the chair he's been sitting on almost toppling over. He catches it at the last moment and sets it right, then grimaces briefly before stalking over to me. There is enough distance and enough time to see the hunch of his shoulders and the stiffness of his posture. For a moment I worry if he's hurt somehow, but as he comes closer, it seems more likely he's only wary, perhaps not unusual. With the commotion last night, it puts me ill at ease. Yeah, great. I have no need for the supernatural senses to know this is going to be another pebble in the mansion of mysteries. Uncle looks a mess, his feet unwrapped and covered in dirt, his clothes not much better. What has he been doing? Rolling around on the forest floor? He does that. He's a wolf. Well, half-wolf, half-lichen. Hunter, I need to speak with you. He doesn't sound like the loose, cocky half-lichen I've come to know. Alcar speaks forcefully, but there's a tremor in his voice. It's hard to miss. He sounds frantic almost. What's wrong? Ooh, more pretty art. The frown deepens instead of explaining himself. Alcar holds out his hand and uncurls his fingers, revealing a crumpled ball of fabric. For a moment, I stare at him and at the thing he's holding without comprehension. Alcar stares back, expression telling me he thinks I'm an idiot for not getting it, and I almost want to snap. But then I realize the distinctive purple under the dirt, and the dried crust of blood, and my stomach drops. A hunter's sash. Alcar is holding a hunter's sash in his hand, or what's left of it. The thing is torn to a sorry state. Its original color almost indistinguishable under the grime. Carefully, I reach out to take it from him for closer inspection. He looks down. It doesn't belong to the hunter that was killed last night. It doesn't belong to any of them. It's not right. The snow. And he would know, being a half-lichen. I stare at him in disbelief, shaking my head as I feel the gritty fabric between my fingers. Then who does it belong to? Alcar shrugs his half-heartedly. In the tavern's uncertain light, his face is drawn, his eyes sunken, exhausted, I realize, but his tail flicks back and forth, back and forth. Impatience or agitation? It's hard to tell with him. All I know is that Alcar is telling the truth, if for no other reason than because he's too worn out for deception. I tried, but I couldn't tell. I searched all night with the clan, but we came up short. He looks over his shoulder, checking to ensure we don't have company. I have to be careful. I can't be seen with such things. They'll... A sharp exhale, and he admits defeat, shoulders drooping, ears flat against his head. There's as much bitter resentment in his voice as there is sulk. They'll hurt me again. I almost ask who, but Alcar's hand twitches towards his chest, drawing my eye to the hidden brand that I know is there, making the unpleasant implication clear. He means the enforcers. So again, we have a decision to make. Do we flirt or do we not flirt? Let's go with flirt because we can. I raise an eyebrow at him, even as I very carefully pocket the piece of evidence. I haven't forgotten the brief conversation with Finn in the graveyard about the strange smelling blood. This feels like a vague but worthwhile puzzle piece. And despite himself, Alcar delivered it to me, a stranger, and a hunter at that. Probably precisely because I'm a stranger. God knows he probably doesn't trust any of my colleagues in this town. Still, it's got me touched. Of course. Don't worry, Alcar. I won't mention you. And even if they do try to give you trouble for it, they will have to get through me first. Alcar's jaw drops. He stares at me like I've just said something outlandish before the moment passes and he takes a step back, a bark of a laugh bubbling out of him. I see what you did there, a bark of a laugh, half-lichen. Oh, that's rich. I glare at him and he grins right back, not an ounce of humility. Richer than you, that's for sure. What are you, 12? Right on your level then, isn't it? The grin widens, his canine stared sharp and large, and in genuine amusement, Alcar surveys me for a moment with his arms still crossed, but there is something else to his gaze now. After a moment, he laughs again, but averts his eyes. I don't miss that, nor do I miss the blush. And you can see the blush. Yay! Made him blush. Or the fact that I can't seem to stop grinning. You're a fucking riot, Hunter. Seems your type. He rolls his eyes, looking none too upset. He leans closer slowly, lowering his voice despite the empty tavern. I don't know how much or how little you've decided to trust the powdery punch in that workplace of yours, and he pauses, looking pained. And I said all that about not trusting anyone I know, but just listen to me this once. Take that to Ezra, not to your superior. He regards me with beseeching intensity, eyes flickering across my face like he's looking for some sort of gift, something he can trust. I don't know if I can give it to him. Alcar's concern for his own well-being, I understand. This is different. Yet, I have no desire to bother Harry this morning, not after last night, and not over an inconclusive scrap of something that smells strange. August is another mystery altogether. Ezra does have a wonderful little shop full of witchy magic. In a town this small, I can only surmise he would be the one with the most tools at his disposal to suss out an analysis of something like this. It does make sense to go to him, which is all well and good, because Alcar is beginning to look downright fidgety. All right, I'll go to Ezra with this. Alcar stares at me for a second longer, like he doesn't know if I was being honest. Eventually, however, his shoulders relax, and he takes a step back. Then my job's done. Hope you don't mind me quitting this place. A tavern is no fun when there's nobody to pick a fight with. He would prefer to pick a fight. He drops into a mocking, half-assed smile, his tail swishing, and then all but squeezes himself out the door right past me before I can so much as strain. I stare where Alcar has already vanished and wonder for a moment if I should chase him down. But then, forget it. He's no hunter, and I have a feeling not entirely natural, but the thing out there isn't interested in lichens, witches, demons, or vampires. It's nothing to do with the killing pattern. It's sighing, I tuck my coat more tightly around myself and reluctantly make to follow his path. Breakfast will have to wait. The shop is empty when I arrive, that comforting tinkle of the bell that sits above the door welcoming me. Ezra is nowhere to be seen, but I do spot a small white cat curled up at the foot of the shop counter. A cat! I love cats! A curious creature, one that gives out the same soothing magical aura as her owner, if I'm to make assumptions. The purple curtain that separates the shop and living quarters twitches, and Ezra emerges, clutching a cup of steaming tea. Oh, someone looks lovely. Robin, I'm so relieved to see that you're all right. The cat's ears twitch at the sound of his voice, and her eyes glow a vivid aquamarine as they lazily open. She stretches, sauntering over to him and parading herself in between his legs. He ignores her, moving to place his key upon the counter. I heard that you had to depart the festival quite abruptly. We were all worried for you. I nod politely, offering him a clipped smile. I did, unfortunately. Well, I do hope you've had enough rest. You look ever so tired, not that I'm surprised after an inevitably late evening. Would you like some tea? The sash feels heavy in my coat, and as much as I enjoy exchanging pleasantries with the witch, I'm here for a reason. I actually need your help with something quite urgent. You do? What is it? Both the cat and Ezra watch me intently as I retrieve the sash, the violet bloodied fabric unfurling as I hold it up. The cat hisses, her hackles raised as she darts into the back room with little hesitation. That paired with the look on Ezra's face unnerves me, and I sigh heavily, exasperated as he rushes past me to lock the front door. Oh boy. Deadbolt and all. He faces the door, his palms lay flat upon the window pane. It glows a pleasant shade of blue as he whispers what I assume to be a ward incantation before he turns to join me. Though we're quite clearly alone, his voice is tactfully quiet. Where exactly did you get that? The words rush out of him, and his aura is panicked, so much so that I begin to feel a terrible sense of unease washing over me. Ezra is the one person I truly had no hesitation about trusting from the start, someone I thought I could rely on. But here, right now, I find myself questioning his intentions. Wouldn't you? Could he possibly already know who this belongs to? And if so, how? Alcar found it in the woods last night. He told me to bring it to you, and only you. He runs a hand through his curls, and I notice that it's shaking. That's not a good sign. Ezra, are you okay? A heavy exhale, and he closes his eyes, shaking his head before he meets my gaze. This is bad. This puts us all in danger. Danger? I don't understand. It's just a sash. I simply hoped you could identify who it belongs to. You're aware of who its owner is, I assume, based on your reaction. I play dumb, expertly disguising my interest in the fact that I know it's not the new victims. If he's hiding something, I'll find out. He moves around to the other side of the counter, nervously rearranging a pile of glowing crystals, pushing aside a dish filled with colorful gems. He spares me a glance as he takes a seat, and then he forces a smile. I have an inkling, yes. May I? He holds out his hand, which I observe is now perfectly steady. I'm hesitant to part with the scrap after that little display of uncertainty, but he seems to have collected his thoughts. Are you sure? He nods, wiggling his fingers impatiently. As sure as I'll ever be. Now, let us get this over with. And more pretty art. As soon as the sash meets his palm, a bright emerald light emanates from his fingertips. The fabric hovers mid-air, suspended by vibrant whirls of magic. The movement of Ezra's hands fluid like water as he commands his spell. I watch in awe as the mark forms before him, indecipherable shapes shifting and changing. His eyes are alight, brighter than ever as the blood that coats the sash seems to pull away from the fabric, suspended alongside his magic. It's beautiful, a truly impressive display, but I'm sure I don't take my eyes off him for even a second. Of course not. His lips part, brow deeply furrowed as he concentrates. He doesn't look pleased, and I'm not entirely sure exactly what he's doing. Whatever it is, I just hope that it helps. This is the first solid piece of evidence I've managed to get my hands on, and I refuse to rest until I get a name. A sharp inhale, and Ezra closes his eyes tight, the magic dissipating, and the sash falls and settles upon the wood. He drops his head, knuckles tight as he grips the edge of the counter. I had a feeling, but... Ezra, work with me here. I need you to be honest. He looks scared, maybe even a little upset. This is bigger than me, but I cannot in good conscience keep this from you. Yes, Umbra. Ezra! I'm not sure if he's talking directly to me or if he's reassuring himself. I suspect it's the latter. Yeah. I try to remain calm, and I truly am unsurprised that yet another person in this town has managed to refrain from divulging potentially valuable information. Everybody, keep your secrets from me. Stop it, for God's sake. Aya Walker. This sash belongs to a girl named Aya Walker. He pushes away from the counter, putting distance between himself and the sash, eyeing it warily. And who exactly is Aya Walker? I really shouldn't. I would hate for any harm to come to you. Harm? Who would harm me over something as insignificant as a name? I'm growing increasingly more frustrated as the minutes pass by, and Ezra can tell. I know he's not stupid. If anything, he's too smart. I suppose he's just looking out for himself, but whatever knowledge he's retaining is clearly valuable, and I must know. I think back to what Omen said only 2 nights ago, about Finn visiting less, about Ezra being tired all the time. Is this connected somehow? So again, another option to flirt, which I am going to take. I've taken the others, so why not? I cannot stop myself from going to him. The way he stares at the sash and the way all color drains from his freckled cheeks has my heart aching. Ezra, it's okay. I'll never let anything happen to you. I worry more about you. I know that sounds foolish, but he wraps his arms around his waist, almost as if he's trying to hold himself together. I care for you. I will not be responsible for you getting hurt. I reach out with a tentative hand, and he steps forward. Without hesitation, I wrap my arms around him, our bodies teamed from shoulder to waist to hip. Aww. He buries his face in the crook of my neck, his hands laid upon my back, fingers curling tight in my clothing. I hold him until I'm sure that he's not going to fall apart, until I know that he feels safe. When I breathe in, my lungs are filled with the sweet scent of vanilla, of clean cotton. Thank you. I needed that, apparently. We reluctantly part, and I register the way his cheeks had darkened, his green eyes bright. Blush, another blush. I love making him blush. Anytime. Ezra eventually shifts his weight, his breathing steadier than it had been, and he clears his throat. Aya, she was general, a really lovely girl, and relatively new in town after being transferred. She was arrested quite suddenly, and no one outside of the enforcers knows why. Hunters, especially of a general's rank, are very rarely thrown in the dungeons for minor transgressions. We are too valuable, so what did she do? I don't know what to do with this information. A young general being thrown into the dungeons is alarming, especially when there's no apparent reason. Treason, murder, unlawful torture. These are all things that I know hunters have been imprisoned for, but never without the public having full knowledge, for such events are not usually quiet ones. No, I would imagine not. We have families, friends. We save lives. There must be something, somewhere, that tells me why she was stripped of her title and thrown into a cell. I take the sash from the counter and tug it back inside my coat, and Ezra keeps a close eye on the movement as if it may jump out at him and bite him. Who was her enforcer? Ezra throws me that look again, the one where he looks impossibly sad, reluctant. Yes. Of course, because I don't have enough on my plate already. Quickly scrambles to add to his statement, clearly not wanting me to think ill of August. Only an interim, though, while her transfer was processed. Her and Piper hit it off quickly, but she was gone before she had a chance to thrive. I take a step towards the door, and Ezra nervously follows. Where are you going? He looks like he wants to reach out and stop me, but he thinks better of it. I'm going to clear my head before... I don't know. I reach to turn the lock, then for the handle, watching his voice shimmer and fade as he reluctantly waves his hand. Something begs at me to pause. Tell me, Ezra, why are you so afraid? A deep breath, then a steady exhale, and Ezra stands tall. Because I'm scared to learn the truth. I've only ever been looking for somewhere to settle, somewhere quiet and away from the things that gave me nightmares. I found that here. I found love, a family, and yet... nothing lasts forever? He shakes his head. Everything crumbles eventually. That is why I'm afraid. I just want a normal life. You picked the wrong friends then. We stare each other down for a lingering moment, and I truly feel sorry for him, for everyone in this town. And I gather that associating yourself with creatures doesn't grant you much peace. It does not. I drop my head, my mind swimming. People are dying, being thrown in dungeons. I've got your back, Ezra, just as long as you have mine. I thank you. Just stay safe. We need you. And out we go. Chill air hits me as soon as I open the door of Ezra's shop and step outside. It hisses in my ears, piercing through layers like it wants to chase me back indoors. I could think of no alternative more enticing, but my work is done here, and I must move on. Not a moment was well timed, it seemed, as I closed the door and immediately noticed a familiar face skulking about just out of my vision until now. Omen startles badly when he realizes that I spotted him. He takes a full step back, away from me, one hand half raised, tail lashing like a snake, and there's genuine fear on his face. Oh, baby. Omen. And a chance to flirt again, which we will pay. The first thought to cross my mind is that he's suspiciously distraught. The second is that it pains me to see him that way. Maybe a distraction is in order. I try to catch Omen's eye and wink at him. Speak of the devil, I was wondering where you were. And another blush. Yay! Did I imagine it that he stiffens at the words? It's hard to tell with how stiff he already is. It lasts for only a second, however, before his face turns red. Maybe redder than just a blush. Maybe something flickers in Omen's eyes, like embers about to burst into life, but he looks sideways too quickly for me to make sure. His aura turns, shifts, but does not change. Omen twists a strand of hair around one finger and tugs at it, tail twitching most anxiously. Adorably. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. Oh, no, I wasn't upset, just surprised is all. He glances at me again, very briefly, brown eyes half hidden beneath long lashes. Omen swallows, and that blush intensifies, and his tail moved. But he is smiling, much to my delight, tremulously, uncertainly, but he is smiling. After a moment, he even deigns to meet my eyes. Clearing his throat, Omen folds his arms together and seems to make a conscious effort to relax. And his tail twitched again. Thank you for worrying about me. I promise, I stayed out of trouble. I believe you. Omen blinks, then smiles wider, shoulders sinking in palpable relief. Okay, that's good to know. He looks at me intently, head tilted to one side. What about you? I heard that there was some kind of trouble. I'm unhurt. Omen's eyes flickered to Ezra's door, expression dubious. I wasn't seeing him because I was hurt, don't worry. Oh, okay. A moment of slightly awkward silence passes before he continues. I'm looking for someone. Omen says this very quietly, like it's a secret confessed. He scans my face with eyes flickering more red than brown, pensive. I wait, since there is little else I can say. Then something seems to resolve. Omen looks from me to Ezra's door, then takes a step back, his mouth tight. She's probably not in there then. I should get going. It's nice seeing you again. He makes a turn away, and I don't know what moves me to act. Perhaps it's his aura, the way I suddenly sense it swell under his glamour, spots a wisp of flame trailing from his hair and the tip of his ears. Perhaps he's walking away, and I simply cannot let him go right now. Perhaps I am tired of one more fucking mystery in this town. Either way, I reach out and grab his wrist. Wait, and instantly regret it. Ooh. Heat scorches my hand, forcing me to withdraw with a small cry. Omen looks over his shoulder at me with glowing amber eyes, his lips drawn back in a half snarl. His still eerily human face is framed by a wreath of fire. My guts clench, twist, drop, and in a sudden glimpse of an immense, blistering presence that sprung out of nowhere. An instinct scream at me in warning. And if you look under here, you'll see that there's some sort of symbol. You can see it in the usual art of him, but you get a clearer glimpse here. Demon. Then Omen jerks back as though out of a trance, and everything extinguishes. I do not know how long we stand there outside of Ezra's shop, with the space of a sword's swing between us. Omen's arms are limp by his sides, him making no move to defend himself. All he does is stare at me with huge eyes and palpable horror. I'm sorry. I force my mouth open to tell him it's all right. I have had worse, really, but I can only pry my jaw apart. The words I can't force through. He's not waiting to hear them. He's stepping away. One, then two, then three. He turns around and flees. Oh, man. I can't move my legs to follow. By the time I get enough control of myself back, Omen is already long gone. In hindsight, I'm glad I couldn't follow him. I swear I'm drinking water to keep my voice going. It takes a tremendous effort for me to pry my stiff fingers from the comfort of my weapon. Yeah, I don't blame them. And darkness, time was fast. I've been sitting in my room at the wolf, waiting for the sun to set, waiting for darkness to fall so I can carry out my next move. No messenger had come to summon me to headquarters, and neither had August come to bang down my door. I gathered that the identification of the deceased hunter had taken a little longer than I expected. Or many dark things crossed my mind, but I pushed them away. I meant it when I said that I'm tired of being pushed from pillar to post, kept in the dark. Enough is enough. If this town wants saving, then I shall do it on my terms. And what terms are those? The door to August's office is thankfully unlocked, and I'm pleased to discover that it's empty. Phew! The desk is in its usual disarray, papers and books haphazardly strewn across its surface. I take a deep breath and head straight for the filing cabinet I've seen August rummaging through so often, and I carefully open the drawers. Apparently Piper has her own, a whole portion dedicated to her hunt reports. An impressive feat. After much rummaging, I eventually find Aya's papers and stuff stuck at the very back of the bottom drawer. If I didn't know what I was looking for, they'd have easily gone unnoticed. It certainly looks like August has tried to hide them, which only increases my suspicion. I find her transfer papers, a glowing letter of recommendation from her previous enforcer. Her records are clean, no discrepancies, nothing but praise. I see the words kind and thoughtful repeated multiple times, and the only complaint, you call it that her enforcer has is that she was overly cautious. Then I find it. Her discharge papers, and I'm not just read treason stamped across the front page. Well, shit, what sort of treason? In the blink of an eye, the whole office lights up, and the door loudly slams against the wall. Whoa, that is so cool. Oh, hi, August. What are you doing? I watch magic coat every surface, swirling and curling over the walls, floor, furniture. It even creeps over the clothing, and I imagine their skin, too. They stare at me with wide eyes, vivid violets swallowing the once ice blue of the irises, and though it should be concerned that I've been caught, I'm distracted. August? The magic that glimmers upon their clothing disappears, and their eyes lose that otherworldly glow, but the room remains alight. They look at the bundle of papers that I hold tightly in my hand, a frown furrowing their brows. I would ask that you put this back, Hunter Locke. Their words are eerily calm, and they seem more concerned than annoyed. What happened to her? They close the door, clicking the lock and checking the handle before they walk towards me. As poised and perfect as ever, they stare me down. You know, not even Piper found them. I hate to admit that I'm impressed. August? They unfurl their fingers in a silencing gesture, and I pause. August is still my superior officer, and I am nothing if not respectful. I do not wish for Piper to be demoted, nor do I wish for you to meet the same fate, but I appear to be having a case of deja vu. True. But, sometimes the hand that feeds is a forceful one. I'm perplexed. I expected a much harsher conversation. August isn't exactly known for that calm temperament, and this is throwing me out of character. Aren't you going to admonish me? A sly smile, and they shake their heads. No, Robin, I am not. I believe in you, strangely. I believe that you're a bright light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel for this town. And I have been questioning things lately. So we have a court option again, which we are definitely taking. The look that crushes our face breaks my heart. It's one of shame, of sorrow. I long to crack with them, but these papers weigh heavy in my hands. August, please, I can't take any more dishonesty. I'm here to help. I want nothing more than for all this pain to stop. They drop their gaze, apparently unable to look at me. I'm here for you. Their cheeks flush pink, mouth set in a thin, nervous line. Yes. I do not deserve it. I got myself in this mess by... They touch themselves. I do not deserve it. I cross the room, the papers discarded, and I stand face to face with them. Well, face to chest in Robert's case, since she is a foot shorter than them. Help me, August. Oh no, having flashbacks to Star Wars here. instinctively reach for their hand, and I take it without question, placing their long fingers with my own. Oh my gosh! Light pulsed brighter. The markings brightened, thrumming in time with what I assume is August's hammering pulse. Ooh, people are terrified, and I think you are too. What did this girl do to deserve to be forgotten? If I told you that I do not know, would you believe me? I rubbed my thumb along the back of their gloved hand, still feeling their warmth through the fabric. I looked deep into his eyes that seemed to hold the universe. I love the way the magic is pulsing behind them. I would. Then you must be a fool. I laughed quietly, reaching up to cut the curve of their jaw with my free hand. They leaned into my touch as if they craved it for an eternity. Then a fool I shall be. Work with me here, August. We can help each other. Fix this together. Something in my gut tells me this really is all connected, and this does not comfort me. The very institution that I've worked for, that I've dedicated my life to. I moved to pull out the sash and let it unfold where I hold it before them, and August's eyes grow wide. Who does this belong to? I.L. Walker. Their expression is unchanging. I see. It's bloodied. I nod, handing it to them. They do not remove their gloves as they carefully lay it across their palms, studying it intently. Heavily, and torn to shreds. Whatever happened, she put up a fight. They frowned, lips pursed. Something is clearly protecting them. She was not reported to be injured upon her arrest. That much I do know. Something like that wouldn't be admitted. I throw them a sorry stare, wondering how they could still be so sure of such things. You're positive the blood is hers? I want to tell them how I know, but I can't implicate Ezra nor Alcar, not after they were both so clearly terrified. I'm sure, and I'm going to need you to trust me on that. Strangely, they don't question it. Instead, they sigh, delicately resting the sash upon their desk. She was yours, August. Don't you want to know what happened to her? I want to see her, to visit the dungeon. They glance out of the window, and another heavy snowfall coats the icy street outside. I think we need to take a seat. I have a few confessions. End chapter and end of the stream. I cannot go on for much longer, though I want to, because this is an important chapter. But I can tell that my voice is not going to last for much longer. So I hope you enjoyed the stream. I've enjoyed playing through this all over again, because I will say I have played through this. I've done all the romance routes. So if you take August to the Lunar Festival, you get to see that thing with their office before you go to the Lunar Festival. It's really cool. I had not actually taken some of these first options when I first did the romance route that I'm going to do here, but it's fun. And as you can see, I like to do a unique save for each chapter. More so that I can go back and just replay bits and pieces later. So I don't know when my next playthrough will be. I'm kind of leaning towards Monday. I have other plans tomorrow and Sunday, but I don't really have anything else going on Monday. Yeah, I had intended to do a playthrough, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. No, Wednesday. Sorry, yesterday was Thursday. Okay, my days of the week mixed up. Yeah, I had planned to do this Wednesday, but stuff came up and it didn't happen. So I was just like, okay, I will just do one on Friday. And here we are. Yeah, so I will hopefully be back on Monday. The next chapter is the one when we get to lock in whichever romance we want to do, including no romance whatsoever. And I think if you go with no romance, then you don't have any more flirt options, which is a little frustrating, but it makes sense You're not romancing anyone, so why would you keep flirting? But, yeah. I'm getting tired here. I keep losing my train of thought, so I will go ahead and end this here, and thank you all for watching. Have a good night, or evening, or day, wherever you are. Bye.